Hello everyone! Today we are diving deep into one of the most haunting and enduring mysteries in the history of aviation and maritime folklore. A case that has baffled experts, inspired countless theories, and given birth to an entire legend surrounding a region of the Atlantic Ocean. I'm talking about the disappearance of Flight 19, a squadron of 5 torpedo bombers that vanished without a trace in 1945 within the notorious Bermuda Triangle. This case remains one of the strangest aviation mysteries in recorded history, and its details continue to raise questions nearly 80 years later. Our story begins on December 5, 1945. The Second World War had ended only a few months prior, and the United States was still very much in a military mindset. The Navy was operating countless training exercises in and around Florida, ensuring that their pilots remained sharp even in peacetime. On this particular day, 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers, each carrying a crew of 3, took off from the Naval Air Station at Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Their mission was simple enough: a routine navigation training flight that should have taken about 3 hours. The flight was designated Flight 19. The men on board were young but trained. Many of them had seen service during the war. Leading the group was an experienced instructor and pilot, Lieutenant Charles Carroll Taylor. The aircraft were fully fueled and the weather was relatively fair. Conditions did not suggest any major problems. Yet, what began as a straightforward training exercise quickly turned into one of the most puzzling disappearances in modern history. The planned route was standard. The flight would head east from the coast of Florida, fly out over the Atlantic Ocean, then turn north, before finally turning back west and returning to base. It was a triangular course, ironically enough, one that should have been familiar and manageable. But something went wrong, terribly wrong. At first, everything seemed normal. The planes took off without incident. Radio logs show that the initial stages of the flight were uneventful. But not long after the exercise began, Lieutenant Taylor began transmitting unusual messages. He reported that his compasses were not working properly. This was alarming. In aviation, especially in 1945, a compass was essential for navigation. If the compass failed, the pilot had to rely on dead reckoning, the skill of calculating position using speed, direction, and time. It could be done, but over the featureless waters of the Atlantic, without clear visual landmarks, the margin for error was enormous. Taylor radioed that he was lost. His voice was calm at first, but increasingly, other pilots in the formation began to sound confused. The official transcripts suggest that they could not recognize their position. Some of them claimed the ocean below didn't look right. They described islands where none should have been. They debated whether they were flying over the Florida Keys, or if they had drifted far off course into the Bahamas. The control tower back at Fort Lauderdale tried to help. They radioed instructions, urging Taylor to fly west. After all, flying west from almost anywhere in the Atlantic near Florida would eventually bring the aircraft back to land, but Taylor seemed unsure. He thought he was already over the Gulf of Mexico and insisted on turning east. This decision proved catastrophic. If they truly were over the Atlantic, flying east would only take them further out to sea. As the hours went on, communication became increasingly frantic. The other pilots begged Taylor to head west. The control tower desperately tried to fix their position, but radio triangulation wasn't working properly. Some theorists later suggested that atmospheric conditions had distorted radio signals. Whatever the cause, Flight 19 remained lost. The situation grew more dire as daylight faded. Their fuel reserves were running dangerously low. The final radio messages from Flight 19 are chilling. One pilot was overheard saying, "We can't find west. Everything is wrong. Strange, the ocean doesn't look as it should." Another report came through, "We're not certain of our position. We can't be sure where we are. Everything is strange." The last words attributed to Lieutenant Taylor are equally haunting. "We just can't be sure of any direction. Everything looks wrong. We can't tell which way is up. We can't last much longer." After that, silence. 5 planes, 14 men, gone without a trace. Immediately, the Navy launched one of the largest search and rescue operations in history, dozens of ships, aircraft, and patrol boats scoured the seas. But nothing was found. No wreckage, no oil slicks, no bodies, nothing. As if Flight 19 had simply vanished into thin air. And here's where the mystery deepens even further. During the search for Flight 19, another plane disappeared. A massive PBM Mariner flying boat, dispatched with 13 men aboard, was sent to search the last known location of Flight 19. Within minutes of takeoff, it too vanished. Witnesses on a nearby ship reported seeing a fireball in the sky, suggesting the Mariner may have exploded midair. The Navy later suggested that this was due to its reputation for being a flying gas tank. The Mariner had known issues with fuel leaks, but the timing of its disappearance, coinciding with the search for another lost flight, only added to the growing legend. The final toll was staggering. 27 men, 2 types of aircraft, all gone without a trace. The official investigation concluded that Flight 19 had most likely become disoriented, run out of fuel, and ditched into the sea. But this explanation raised even more questions. If they had crashed, why was no debris found? The waters off Florida were not excessively deep. How could 5 planes vanish so completely? This is where the story of Flight 19 transcends a mere aviation accident and becomes part of a larger, almost mythic mystery. The legend of the Bermuda Triangle. The Bermuda Triangle, often defined by the points of Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, has long been associated with strange disappearances of ships and planes. Some dismiss it as superstition, but others point to a long list of unusual events in the region. Flight 19 became the cornerstone of this legend. Over the years, countless theories have been proposed. Some suggest navigational error, plain and simple. Others claim that the compasses malfunctioned due to unusual magnetic anomalies in the area. More sensational theories range from alien abduction to time warps, interdimensional rifts, and even secret military experiments. Eyewitness reports from the radio transcripts, however, cannot be ignored. The pilots genuinely seemed confused by what they saw. Descriptions of the ocean looking wrong, of directions not making sense, of compasses spinning. These are not ordinary observations. Were they experiencing a natural but rare phenomenon? Could it have been a case of magnetic declination, taken to an extreme, or was something truly unexplainable happening in that part of the Atlantic that night? The Bermuda Triangle mystery only grew after this event. Writers, journalists, and researchers added layer upon layer of speculation. Books in the 1960s and 70s transformed the Flight 19 disappearance into a cultural touchstone. It was no longer just about lost planes. It was about the idea that our world might harbor regions where reality itself breaks down. The disappearance of Flight 19 did not just puzzle the Navy. It triggered one of the greatest mysteries in aviation folklore. As days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, not a single shred of evidence surfaced. Families of the missing men demanded answers, while the public became increasingly fascinated with the case. What could cause 5 fully functioning aircraft, led by an experienced pilot, to vanish so completely? The official Navy investigation initially concluded that the pilots became disoriented and ran out of fuel, crashing into the sea. Yet the case was anything but simple. For one, the weather was not stormy enough to account for such confusion. Furthermore, if the planes had crashed, debris should have been found. But despite extensive searches across the ocean floor and coastline, nothing ever turned up. Not a life vest, not a wing fragment, not even an oil slick. The report itself became controversial. At first, it stated that pilot error was to blame, but later, this was revised. Some versions of the report listed the cause as unknown. Others speculated on compass malfunctions or possible mechanical failures. The inconsistencies only fueled speculation that something was being covered up. Over time, the legend of the Bermuda Triangle absorbed Flight 19 as its centerpiece. The idea of a triangle, where ships and planes mysteriously vanish, dates back centuries. Early explorers like Christopher Columbus noted strange compass readings in the same area. Sailors told tales of ghost ships and vessels that disappeared without a trace. Flight 19, however, gave modern credibility to the legend. It wasn't just folklore anymore, it was a documented military incident. Now, let's examine the most prominent theories surrounding the mystery of Flight 19. The first and most rational explanation is navigational error. Lieutenant Taylor, despite his experience, was known to have gotten lost before. In fact, records show that on at least 2 previous occasions he had become disoriented during flights. On December 5th, he believed he was flying over the Florida Keys, when in fact he was far to the east over the Atlantic. If this was true, then by turning east instead of west, he led his entire squadron out to sea. As fuel ran out, the planes likely ditched in the water, sank, and were never found. But even this explanation has problems. Aviation experts argue that multiple pilots in the squadron could not all have misidentified their position. At least one of them should have realized where they were and taken corrective action. Moreover, the fact that not one single plane has been found after decades of searching is highly unusual. The waters off Florida are not as deep as the open ocean. Sonar mapping has revealed countless wrecks from other flights and ships, but Flight 19 remains absent. The second theory involves magnetic anomalies. The Bermuda Triangle has long been associated with unusual magnetic readings. Pilots and sailors have reported compasses spinning wildly or pointing in strange directions. In the case of Flight 19, Taylor repeatedly complained that his compass was not functioning properly. Could the squadron have flown into an area where Earth's magnetic field was distorted? Science acknowledges that magnetic anomalies exist, but none have been proven strong enough to cause such confusion on a large scale. Still, the possibility remains intriguing. Another theory points to weather phenomena. Sudden storms, waterspouts, and rogue waves are known to occur in the Atlantic. A violent storm could have disoriented the pilots, destroyed the planes, and concealed wreckage. However, weather reports from that day do not indicate a massive storm system. There was some turbulence, but not the kind that would obliterate 5 aircraft without leaving debris. Then there are the more sensational theories. Some suggest that Flight 19 encountered a time warp or interdimensional rift. According to this idea, the plane slipped into another reality, which would explain why no trace was ever found. Others believe they were victims of extraterrestrial abduction. After all, strange lights and unexplained aerial phenomena have been reported in the Bermuda Triangle region for decades. Could an alien force have intervened, snatching the planes mid-flight? While such ideas sound far-fetched, they continue to capture the imagination of mystery enthusiasts. There is also the theory of a military cover-up. Some believe that Flight 19 stumbled into restricted waters or witnessed secret experiments, perhaps related to post-war technology. The Navy may have concealed the truth to prevent sensitive information from leaking. The disappearance of the rescue plane, the PBM Mariner, strengthens this suspicion. If one disappearance could be explained away, 2 on the same day raises eyebrows. Was the Mariner destroyed by accident during a classified test? Did the Navy use the Flight 19 incident as a convenient smokescreen? Interestingly, despite technological advancements, the mystery has not been solved. In recent decades, numerous expeditions have scoured the ocean floor off Florida. Advanced sonar and submersibles have mapped thousands of wrecks, yet none of them match the TBM Avengers of Flight 19. If they ditched in shallow waters, as some suggest, they should have been found by now. The absence of evidence only makes the mystery grow stronger. The cultural impact of Flight 19 has been immense. It inspired books, documentaries, and even movies. Steven Spielberg's classic film, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, includes a scene where the lost planes of Flight 19 mysteriously reappear in the desert, untouched by time. This shows just how deeply the story has penetrated our collective imagination. But beyond the myths and theories, there is a human side to this tragedy. 14 young men went missing that day, leaving behind families who never received closure. For them, the Bermuda Triangle is not just a legend. It is the place where their loved ones vanished, their fates forever uncertain. So, what do we make of it all? Was Flight 19 the victim of human error, technological failure, or something more extraordinary? We may never know the full truth. What is certain is that the disappearance cemented the Bermuda Triangle's reputation as one of the world's greatest mysteries. Perhaps one day, advances in underwater exploration will uncover the wreckage. Perhaps divers will stumble upon the planes, perfectly preserved on the seabed, finally solving the riddle. Or perhaps, as some believe, the truth lies beyond the reach of science, in realms of reality we cannot yet comprehend. Until then, the ocean keeps its secrets, and Flight 19 remains the ghost flight of the Atlantic, a chilling reminder that even in our modern age, there are mysteries that defy explanation.